She cooks nothing but chuck wagons, stew, and her name is Minerva. Ouch! She's the flower of the flower. Ouch!
Well, there you have it. Welcome. It's Aaron Live. It's a last second live stream. I'm fidgeting in my chair already, so you know I'm completely unprepared. And that's the beauty of doing a last second live stream, is I am completely always unprepared. Let's take care of that glare off the old dome. All righty. Well, people are rolling in. It's a huge audience, as you can imagine, at almost 9 o'clock Pacific time, midnight Eastern time. But there are a few comments, so let's take a look at these real quick. Killer Squid is here first, and he just proclaims it first, and he's right. You get nothing for that, but I appreciate you coming by. Mike McMahon, Spaceballs, the text crawl. Yes, indeed, that's exactly what it was. Leg Kick is here, because Leg Kick is almost always here, and I'm glad to have you. Tarks9 is here. Nicholas Gear, howdy, folks. He's saying hi to Leg Kick, Mike, Killer Squid, the whole gang. Tom, is that Bipple or Bopel or Beppel? I don't know. But Tom, thank you for joining us. I know you've been here many times before, but I don't know if I've ever actually pronounced your name correctly. So why should tonight be any different? Paul, Aaron, my man. Paul, my man, thanks for joining us. Oh, look at that. David Williams, howdy, Aaron, yo chat. Hey, welcome, David. David's probably working and going to be listening to keep himself awake. Okay, so what am I doing tonight? Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing. Some of you may or may not know that I do have actually plans. I sound like the Joker. Commissioner Gordon's got plans. I have plans for the next Wraith of God, there's the banner, story project that's going to be on Indiegogo after I fulfill this one. And hopefully we're getting those books from the printer on June 10th is what the date's supposed to be. So unless they change it, this is Joe Biden's America, so anything could happen. But if they haven't given me any indication that there's a change in that date. So we're expecting them June 10th. So once that's fulfilled, I'm going to be starting a new campaign. And that campaign is going to feature a new Wraith of God story called Blood Hunters, which I am currently working on that script right now. What I am also adding to that is a backup story of a new Garbage Man story and the nightclub. And you may say, why the nightclub, Aaron? Well, once you read Wraith of God, that question may be answered. So anyway, I have the script for the Garbage Man story. And I thought, you know what? Everything's bagged and boarded. All the stretch goals, all the extras, all that stuff is put together and ready to be shipped out. So what have I got to do? Well, nothing. I could clean the house, but why would I do that? So I'm going to start working on the stories that are going to be in the next project. And one of those, as I said, is the Garbage Man, which I'm working on right now. So let's that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to work on that Garbage Man page. Features a zombie, so you should all be pleased with that. Let's see. Hyper Potato wants to know, did you see a drink and draw? Did an Atari Force stream last night? Did I see that? Let me think. No. Did you see this? Let's see. Shadowhawk Talks. Hail AA Ron. Thank you, Shadowhawk, for joining us. Appreciate it. The Geek Easy is, I'm happy with my DC versus Marvel trade. Well, you should be happy with it, but not content. You should always be looking for the next great thing, and I'm hopefully going to provide that for you. Mike McMahon, cannot wait for this book. Thank you, Mike. David says, my Bass Reeves art was based on the Wild Wild West opening animated sequence you showed AA Ron. So look at that. I didn't even know it, and I'm helping David out, or he's inspiring me or something. Of course, Vic would say Blood Hunter sounds perverse, so I'm not even going to go past that. I'd expect nothing less from Vic. Quotha Raven, Lewis Bright Raven is here. David Brohawk, yeah, I told her in that first time he used it. Oh, well, maybe I wasn't paying attention. Vic, I don't even know what that means. I'm not even going to put that up on the screen. Paul says, I love when creators say the word fulfillment. Well, that is kind of the magic word, isn't it, when it comes to this crowdfunded stuff? But that was my goal all along. Keep it on a timely schedule, which I think I did. Of course, the printing timeline was longer than I would have liked, but again, that was, who could have projected we'd be in this kind of a economic pickle, 10 months ago? Well, actually I could have, but a lot of people did, but I was hoping that it wouldn't be, but it is. So, they got stretched out longer than, a lot of people. We used to be able to get our books, even smaller print runs, like, like independent producers, still get our books turned around in 2 to 3 weeks. So that changed from 4 to 6 weeks, and then to 8 weeks. So I had a battle and back and forth and got it to 6 weeks. So let's hope that holds. All the Garbage Man stories in the trade paperback? No. Yes. Let me try that again. Yes, they are, that exist to this point. So if you get the Garbage Man trade paperback, you will have completely caught up on Garbage Man. It also introduces, of course, the Nightclub, which plays a pivotal role in the Lopresti verse going forward. So that's another reason to check that out. We do still have some left in the campaign, but you could also get it on Amazon. I believe you still can, if you don't want to order from me, because the only difference is my copy is signed, the Amazon one isn't, and mine's more expensive because of that. But, I also am paying more than Amazon is to get my copies of Garbage Man from Dark Horse. So, that factors all into it. Bretsky the Great, no relation to Gretzky the Great, I'm sure, but salute Chet, salute Aaron. Thank you so much. Kit Carson will be a stretch goal on the next project. If we get to $100,000, I'm going to add 15 pages of Kit Carter to it. So then we're going to end up potentially with another 80 plus page graphic novel sized collection. This will be 3 stories, possibly 4 with the Kit Carter stuff. The main story, of course, being Wraith of God, Blood Hunters, which will be longer than the other 2. But the other ones will be full stories. Is there a problem with overseas paper shortage stalling books from coming out? Okay, here's what I was told from a printer. I was told that when they did the shutdowns because of COVID, which of course was the biggest mistake in the history of mankind, but when they did those shutdowns and they shut everything down, the paper mills that had all these tree supplies and the trees cut down and ready to be turned into paper had all this lumber sitting there, and instead of sitting on it and waiting for the COVID bans to be lifted, they sold all their lumber to China and overseas. So then when everything started up again, guess who had no paper? Us. So then they got to buy it back from China or wherever else they sold it to. All that stuff gets shipped over on a boat. You've got log jams and boats in Long Beach and other places trying to get the materials into the country. And on top of that, you have all these people that had printing projects, right? They were ready to go to press. Everything got canceled, stopped. Then all that stuff started piling up. And then you got more people coming in saying, hey, I got a project, I need printed. And so suddenly you got this log jam that continues to build out and build out. So now not only do they have trouble getting paper, they're also backed up because they're trying to catch up with all the print jobs that got stalled out and backed up while everything was shut down. So economics 101, do not shut down the economy for anything. It's just dumb. And that's what happens. That's where we're at. And there's still paper problems because the mills still apparently have not caught up with their production. So you could go to a printer and say, hey, I want 80 pounds silk. And they might have it 1 week, but then 3 weeks from now, they may run out, they may not have it again. So then you've got to switch to another paper. So now the bigger printers probably have greater access to that stuff, because I didn't have any paper problems when I requested my paper from the printers. But I know smaller printers, which I'm doing like my prints and for this campaign, those are all small print runs. Those had difficulty getting the paper they wanted. So I'm sure there's a hierarchy. The bigger printers are first in line because they're ordering more, and the little printers, as they go, get screwed. So there's a whole lot of crap going on that everybody's trying to navigate, and we shall see how it all plays out. But let's take a look at this page that I'm working on right now. As I switch to my groovy Razer Cairo camera that gives me that high res. Let's pull out a little bit here. Look at that groovy zombie action I got there. In typical fashion, on a last second live stream, I'm completely unprepared. So let me get my pencils. Okay, so this is actually page 2 to the Garbage Man story. Now, originally, when I was going to do this, it was going to go into the trade paperback as a new story, like a short story. It was like only 13 pages long. And I really had to sort of edit it pretty heavily to get it down to 13 pages. And one of the things I had was, I had this zombie, which is now a zombie splash page. This is Garbage Man right here in the foreground, by the way. And I did all of this with a Prismacolor light blue coal erase pencil. So anyway, I had panels setting up Garbage Man alone in the woods, and then he looks up, and then there's this half page of this zombie coming out of the woods at him, which really, of course, needed to be a splash page, but I didn't have the page count to do it. Well, when this sort of went awry and became something else, and then I did it through Dark Horse, it was not with the new material. So this story that I'm doing can now be expanded to, there's several more pages. So it's probably much closer to a 20-page story, give or take a page here and there. I have to go back and look at the script again, because I'm probably going to expand, like there's some fighting and stuff that's going to get expanded that I couldn't do prior. And there's sort of like a little scene at the end that I wanted to do, but I couldn't fit in because of the page count, but now it's not a concern. So all that stuff will be going in there. So I think we're going to end up with about a normal 20-page comic book story. The nightclub story is not written yet, so I'm not sure exactly how many pages it's going to be. But the great thing about doing these crowdfunded projects is you can, if you need to add a page or 2 or 5 or whatever, you can do that without any trouble, because you're the editor, you're the publisher, you're the boss. So you do all that stuff, and as you see fit for the story. So who's lurking at my door? That's my daughter's lurking outside. So anyway, as I'm working on the script for Wraith of God, Blood Hunters, I thought, well, why don't I got to do some drawing. Why don't I work on the Garbage Man story since I have the script? So anyway, I was able to, I guess I got myself off track there, but my whole point, I guess, to this was that this is now a splash page. So the first page is going to be setup of Garbage Man in the woods, and then he's going to, hear some rustling or whatever. He's going to turn, and boom, we get this zombie coming out of the woods. Did the zombie have rickets? Yes. He was a pirate and did not get enough vitamin C. Wait, is that rickets or is that something else? That's scurvy if you don't get enough vitamin C. So Paul says, even large printers are making you pay in advance to put a hold on certain paper stocks so that you have it when you need to go to press. Crazy times. Indeed, they are. Yeah, I had to pay all up front for my printing on this, on the Wraith of God graphic novel. And let me tell you, it ain't cheap. But, and I actually talked to my printing rep. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. If I pay you guys up front, what leverage do I have if you screw up the order? And, she was very, very adamant about the fact that if, anything went wrong that was their fault, they would make it right. So I'm trusting, which is never a good thing to do in business, but can't help it. It's my nature. And plus, I really didn't have a choice. So I don't anticipate any problems. We really went over those color proofs, with a fine-tooth comb. I did some adjustments to the color proofs, even though they didn't necessarily need it, simply to safeguard against, making sure everything printed the way it was supposed to print. And so I'm quite confident that we're going to get a really nice looking finished project, or product, I guess I should say. This whole sort of knock-kneed thing, this zombie, this is a total Wrightson thing. Wrightson did this all the time. And so that's, even though I don't necessarily draw like Wrightson, it's more evident when I'm doing stuff like this, the influence on my, my art. But much like, Neil Adams, who was a big influence on me, I don't draw like Neil Adams, but I take storytelling things and cues from Neil Adams, and I do the same thing with Wrightson. So, he always had this sort of knock-kneed sort of thing that he would do with like creepy guys or zombies or whatever. And so I tend to do that as well. I just kind of like the look. So David Williams wants to know what size his paper is. It's 11 by 17. You can't really tell because of the angle I have it at. But you can see all the kind of like gross little zombie details I have going on in there. But yeah, this is good old 11 by 17. This is Kaysen, I think. Yeah. I'm sorry, Canson. They have an art board. This has a little more tooth to it than the Strathmore stuff I've been using, which is smoother. But I kind of like this. So I'm going to go with this maybe for the entire new project. Well, the last project was all done on a really slick paper. This is probably all going to be done on this with a little bit more tooth. We shall see how it all, how I like inking on it or not, because that could change stuff really quickly if I'm not digging the inking or the way the paper takes the ink, which I think it'll be fine, but now these pencils I'm going to do a little bit tighter than I do the Wraith of God pencils, because the Wraith of God pencils I do a lot of the drawing in the inking stage because I want that look. The Garbage Man is going to be probably a bit more refined looking than the Wraith of God stuff is, just simply because I want to stay consistent with what I've done previously with Garbage Man, and Matt Ryan was the inker on those, and he's a really exceptional inker, obviously, but he does really, slick, controlled work. I'm not going to probably be as slick as he, but this stuff is going to look a little different than the Wraith of God stuff. Maybe not to the untrained eye, but for those of you looking for that type of thing, you'll see that there's different to it probably. My goal is, of course, to get about 20 pages done. Whether that's, all of the Garbage Man story and part of the Wraith of God story, or parts of all three stories before the next campaign goes live. That's my goal anyways, to have 20 pages in some way, shape, or form. So it feels weird in a lot of ways to be, moving on and starting a new project when I'm still waiting for the first project to get back from the printers. But if I do it this way, you guys, if you are so inclined to back the next project, you'll be getting it much quicker than me waiting till the campaign closes after 45 or 60 days. I'll probably do 45 because that's what I did last time. Hopefully if I get 20 pages done, it'll cut a good 2 months off the production time on the book, which is a good thing. So, and there's no reason for me not to be working on it, because what else am I going to do? Let's see what's going on in the chat. Citizen Ronan, I'm having trouble falling asleep tonight with Aaron's voice. Perfect. Yeah, well, let's see if this puts you to sleep. I was curious. Let me know if that helped. Midway. Aaron is pure lycanthrope. Yes, past Petter Dan has helped me out that is indeed scurvy. Shelley brought that up. And the interesting thing is I'm going to have multiple cover options again. And what I originally was going to do was this was going to be just a straight up anthology called Empire Events, but I had too many people, including myself, after a while, think that's a weak title, and you need to capitalize on the success of Wraith of God. So don't be dumb and call it something that no one knows what it is. Call it something that people do recognize, which of course would be Wraith of God Blood Hunters, featuring backup stories of Garbage Man and the Nightclub, and possibly Kit Carter. So originally what I was going to do was, though, that finger right there is probably not placed in the best position. So what I was originally going to do was I would have like a cover that featured Wraith, Garbage Man, and then one that featured the Nightclub. So we'd have the three different, and I'm still trying to figure out a way to do that and still have it make sense, because obviously if the book is called Wraith of God Blood Hunters, having a Garbage Man cover on a comic book called Wraith of God Blood Hunters doesn't make any sense. So I'm working on a strategy that will allow me still to do my three covers featuring the that's better. Featuring the three different characters that'll be in the book. I was thinking about doing a Kit Carter cover, but I'm not sure she'll be in the book. I mean, I'm confident that we'll hit our goals, but you never know. So I can't guarantee that that'll be in the book, but I've got some ideas on how to pull it off. I could do a Wraith of God cover, then I could do kind of a Tales of Suspense kind of thing where you have a split cover, and then possibly also kind of go the Golden Age route, which was you saw it with EC Comics, and a lot of Golden Age books before EC Comics in the 40s, they would have little, circles on the side that would say who else was featured in the book, and I could do that with having a Wraith of God cover, and then, those. So there's different ways to do that and to sort of kind of get different cover options out there rather than just, doing 3 more Wraith of God covers, which I don't want to do because I just did that on the Wraith of God campaign. So, so I'm working on it. And I'd like to do a Kit Carter cover. The problem is I can't guarantee that she's going to be in the book. So that might be something I would add on later, kind of like I did the Keown werewolf cover. And I know it kind of ticks people off when I add stuff late, and it makes it harder for me to sort of keep track of everything too. But I'm not sure exactly how else to do it. But I'm toying with several ideas, and we'll see how they all sort of turn out. That zombie fits the description of the meth heads who live in the forest near Narwhal's home. 16 by 22, good guess. No, 11 by 17. Moving on to the next project is no different than what you have to do if you were self-publishing on a regular monthly, bi-monthly schedule. If you're doing a diamond distribution method, that is correct. Aaron, just have the finger falling off on the ground instead. Yeah, I probably should have done that. Oh, look, Mike's in the house. Hey, Mike, let me help you out there. There you go. Sequential. I do a show with this guy and I can't even say his name. Aaron Lepresti, have the Wraith holding his 2 guns while they smoke and have Garbage Man and Nightclub and the smoke from the guns. You get them all in that way. That's a good idea. May steal that. Better to reserve the front cover for Wraith. Tales of Suspense Split could be on the back, not asking for a flip book. Oh, you're not going to get a flip book. Did I ever tell you the story that I invented the flip book, but which may or may not be true? But as I remember it, it's true. So it's kind of like George Costanza. If I believe it, then it's not a lie. Hey, look at that, GJ Martinez. Thank you for joining us. It's a surprise tonight, boy, isn't it? It's a zombie. Every night's a zombie kind of night, though, isn't it, Paul? Why do comics with Superman ripoffs do so well, like The Boys and Invincible? Maybe it's because people actually really do secretly like Superman, but they want something more than what they're getting. This is actually it. I did watch the NBA Finals, and I said, you know what? I got to draw. Then I thought, you know what? I'm going to go live and draw. I did the blue under drawing, probably an hour or less with the blue under drawing, and then I just started going over the top of it and then noodling. The one thing I always did with the Garbage Man stories is I worked the title, into the art, and I'm going to continue to do that. In fact, I'm going to do it on all my stories because I really like doing that. I think it's cool, and it's very Steranko or Eisner-esque. And as long as you can make it look cool within part of the story, I just think it's kind of fun. I didn't do it on the Wraith of God graphic novel because there was no title to the story. It was just Wraith of God. This will be, of course, Wraith of God, Blood Hunters. This story is called Night of the Living Jed. All of my titles for the Garbage Man series I did for DC were all sort of, they were either humorous or, word plays, that type of thing. And so this was originally actually slated to be one of the stories in the Garbage Man stuff I was doing for DC. But it's kind of there's a bit of irreverence to the story. And I wasn't sure if it fit tonally with what I was doing. So I ended up doing that really sort of grim Swamp Thing, Man Thing story that was part 6 of the Garbage Man. Those of you who've read the trade paperback or happened to see the miniseries originally when it came out through DC. And this was originally going to be that story, but in fact, my editor, Joey Cavalieri, was like, when I told him what I was originally going to do, he said, dude, send me that script. That sounds great. And I'm like, but I just, for some reason, it didn't feel right at the time. And maybe because the stories that I did for DC were all 10-page stories because they were all part of an anthology, right? So that's why the trade paperback, if that was your first exposure to Garbage Man, there's like these little short story segments and they go to the next. So it was very serialized into 10-page segments, 12 of them. And so I think one of the reasons I didn't do the zombie story was because I didn't feel like I had enough pages. It felt rushed to me. And so I came up with the sort of Man Thing story that I did. But when I got a real positive reaction from my editor on the zombie story, I was like, maybe this isn't as silly as I thought it was, and I should probably do it. And then when I sort of fleshed it out, I really sort of liked it because it's a different take on what you're used to there. The typical, what we've come to know as zombie stories, or flesh-eating zombies kind of thing. That's not how this story goes at all. So I'm not going to say it's a different take on zombies, but I maybe it is, considering what we're used to since 1969's Night of the Living Dead. All zombies have been flesh-eating creatures. So I've taken a bit of a detour from that on this story. I don't know why I'm doing all this detail, because theoretically he should be really silhouetted and be a framing device for the zombie. But maybe what I'll do is I'll have the colorist go in and make him, kind of dark here, so that since I'm doing all this detail, just X it off and make it all black. Probably it's not the best way to spend your time working on something and then just covering it up with black. It's always kind of, you got to figure out little things to kind of put in Garbage Man, since he's made up of, mostly made up of dirt, but there's like all sorts of different sorts of things that you would find right in soil that people maybe threw there, or so sometimes I'll put a piece of string in there or a nail, syringe, a hairpin, things like that. Some of that stuff you can't really recognize all that well, so you don't necessarily want to put something in there that isn't going to read. Your reader's not going to understand. But Mike says, when we were publishing at Alias, we did flip books for our lower print comics. The guts were identical, but we'd swap covers out. The comic was ordered, got the right cover. The other was a bonus. Look at that. Oh, GJ Martinez says, thank you so much for the t-shirt. I just love it. And the design is spot on. Hey, thank you. I didn't do the design. I mean, I did the artwork, but the guys at St. Clair designed it for me. In fact, I happen to have one right here. This is my on-air Wraith of God t-shirts. I'm supposed to wear it whenever I'm on the air, and I keep forgetting, but there it is. Actually, that light sort of is a little bit brighter than it actually is, but it's a very cool shirt. I really love the what they did with the logo, just kind of outlining it in red. But the cool thing is, if you didn't get one of these and you want one, I did order extra shirts of large, extra large, and 2X. I don't have a ton, but I do have some. So, you know, if anybody wants one of these, you can email me at aaron@aaronlopresti.com, and I can hook you up while they last. But anyway, there's there's the shirt. Let's see here. Blacklist continues. Much cheaper to print twice as many pages and an alternative cover than it was to set up a whole separate comic run. Boy, isn't that the freaking truth. That's an excellent question. I have, I think, 5 dealers will be carrying the Wraith of God graphic novel. Now, what I've done is I've set it up so that they don't get their copies until you guys that have ordered the back the campaign get yours first, because I don't want someone going into a comic shop and saying, hey, I didn't even get my copy yet and they're for sale here. So that would be uncool. But I didn't contact any dealers. They contacted me and said, hey, we'd like to get some copies in our store. Is that possible? And I said, well, of course, anything's possible. So now, will that expand and grow as we move forward? It might. I'm not going to say it will or won't, because I don't know. But I know that some people in our community have connections at Diamond, and there might be some interest in carrying some of these books. But we're sort of at the infancy stages of that, because it's a very difficult thing. I mean, these are, you know, most people in comic shops are interested in or used to paying $5 for a book, which seems outrageous to me. But then I'm selling this, but then we're selling these books, you know, whether they're Comics Gate associated or they're just independent books in general, are around that $20, $25 mark. And so how well will they go in the comic shops? I have no idea. But of course, that's why I expanded mine to, 80 plus pages, because I wanted you guys to feel like you're getting your money's worth. And it's a difficult balance, because you can't, if you only sell 1,000 copies, you'll lose money doing an 84-page book. But because I've got 2,500 backers, it allowed me to continue to expand the book and do 84 pages. That means more of the money that I made is going into the book. But again, I think it's important that you guys feel like you're getting your money's worth as much as possible. But anyway, that price point might be difficult in a regular comic shop setting. I don't know. So a lot of those things have to be worked out And it may end up just being, people on an individual basis if they want to mess with it or not. But then if we do a diamond thing, right, then we're back to the situation where the great thing about these is we're eliminating the middleman. We can send these books directly to you, and all the profit goes into the manufacturing of the book. Whereas, if we sell them through a distributor to retail shops, you're basically putting yourself back in the same position that Marvel and DC is, where you're only returning 40% of the cover price on the book. And then that means in order to be able to do that, you've got to have a huge print run. And right now that's the challenge, right? I mean, I'm going to have a print run of 3,500 books, which is pretty good for an independent book. But, realistically, if you were going to do through comic shops, you would have to be selling probably 15,000 copies just to break even. So it's kind of I should say that if you're paying decent rates, which I try to do, if anybody, obviously I want to pay myself a decent rate, but if there's other people working on it, I don't like going to someone that's a colorist, for example, like Gabe, that's worked for DC on contract for years and try and lowball him. I want to pay him close to what he got at DC. And in order to do that, you've got to have the sales. So there's a lot of things that sort of go into that, answering that rather complex question about whether or not these are going to end up in comic shops or not. Lewis Brighter says, Aaron, I buy plenty of 15 to 25 books at my local comic shops, but the store doesn't just carry them. I have to special order everything. Interesting. Well, you've got that Alex Ross Fantastic Four graphic novel coming out. And I don't have any idea what the price point on that, but I'm going to be very curious because I imagine it's going to be 64 pages. My guess would be that it's going to be a $20 book. It's going to have to be, right, for what they're probably paying him to do that. People are desperate for good books. I think there's some truth in that as well. Let's see. Geek Easy says, I'm getting more into trades and stuff like this over floppies. The big two are beginning to annoy me and I want better content. I'm willing to pay for it. Well, good for you. Excellent. Well, that's what we're trying to provide. And I do think as you're an older reader, and I think a lot of us like to sit down. Well, like, for example, when the first White Knight Batman thing was coming out, I didn't buy any of the issues, but when it became a trade, I picked it up and then I sat down and just kind of read the whole thing like you would maybe a novel or something, right? And because you really have to structure the books. On a monthly book, you should structure it so that you're kind of leaving your audience hanging every month. Within the context of this, the storyline that you're working on, because you want to build excitement. You want people to really be looking forward to the next issue. When you're doing a graphic novel, your story beats are different because you're assuming that people are going to sit down and read it. So I had to make sure when I was doing Garbage Man, for example, at DC, that everything I did kind of led into the next thing. Again, like you're doing a movie serial or something. And you had to make your story fit into a certain number of pages, which is always kind of weird, when I wrote screenplays is the same thing, but the screenplay, you want to keep it at 120 pages or less, but there's no, if you went to 122 pages, it's no big deal. Or if you went 118, it's not a big deal, right? But if you're doing a comic book, it's got to be 20 or 22 pages, whatever, the agreed upon, number is. And, if you need an extra page in there, that's too bad. You got to edit something out. You got to combine stuff or whatever to get to that page count. So you're always writing with that sort of in mind. How am I going to make this fit? Am I, doing too much here? All I have to do with this stuff is keep it in a ballpark, a vicinity. If I got a couple pages here and there that are extra, I'm willing to do that for the sake of the story. But at the same time, you have to be discerning enough to go in and edit your own work and say, you know what, I'm being self-indulgent here. This scene, in fact, I did that in Wraith of God. There's a scene between, well, I won't say who it's between, but two characters, and it was 2 pages the way I originally wrote it. And I drew it too, and then I looked at it and said, this, not enough happens here to warrant using up 2 pages. This could easily, it's a dialogue page basically, so this could easily be taken care of in 1 page. And so I went in and redrew it, edited out that extra page, and then was able to add actually an extra page to the climactic fight scene, which you can never have enough of that, because I didn't want the fight scene to end too quickly. Even though I have to admit, I'm not a big guy on fight scenes. They get really repetitive to me quickly. And I'm much more, as a reader, I'm much more interested in the character stuff, and not the boring character stuff, like, 2 people sitting at a coffee shop for 6 pages, but stuff that moves the story along, progresses the story. Because fight scenes can get sort of long and can get sort of, like I said, repetitive. And I don't think that's a great thing either. So, but I've been guilty of making fight scenes too short and then going in and saying, I got to expand this out a little bit. Louis Breyer even says 10K is the bare minimum for a self-publisher doing it all yourself, 15 to 17K for additional talents at proper page rates. I don't know if I would agree with that, Louis. Again, it depends on what you're willing to take as your page rate, even if you're doing it yourself, because your printing cost is going to be, depending on your print run, could be, as low as $4,000 and as high as $6,000, or in my case, over 10 grand. I won't tell you exactly what the printing cost was. It was over $10,000 to print this, but it's an 84-page book too, and I'm printing up 3,500 copies. So my price per book was pretty good, but then you got to ask yourself, what are you paying? What am I paying myself to write it? What am I paying myself to draw it and ink it? What am I paying the colorist? What am I paying the letterer? What am I paying the designer who comes in and puts the book together for me? What am I paying? So it all comes down to your page rates, because to be honest with you, the people that are most expensive are the talent, and if you want people, if I'm going to hire somebody, like if I hired Matt Ryan to ink this Garbage Man story, I'm going to pay him what his DC rate is, because the last thing you want is someone coming in and saying, well, the guy's only paying me, 2/3 my DC rate, so I'm just going to hack this out. Because you're not motivated to do a good job, because you're not getting paid what you're worth. So it all comes down to page rates, really, and what you're willing to do. And black and white and color too makes a difference, in your printing costs. But I don't think printing costs are your biggest factor. It's what you're paying your talent that's your biggest factor. That's true. But a lot of that collected stuff is reprint, right? So you're not paying the talent again. All you're doing is paying to have the book printed. and then you're distributing it, and so your profit margin is much higher on those books than on a book that is all new material where you're paying, again, the talent to produce it. Yeah, Vic, you'd say Alex Ross is good. Well, his drawing is excellent too. I mean, you can paint. Your painting technique can be really great, but if you can't draw, great painting technique is not going to save crappy drawing. By the same token, a really nice drawing might be able to cover up some weak, underdeveloped painting skills, like say mine, for example. So it always comes down to the drawing, and Alex Ross is, I mean, he does that sort of, he was the first guy to come in and actually do like realistic portrayals of superheroes, you know. So he's, you know, he's probably, I can't imagine anybody making more money than he does in comics, to be honest with you. I don't know for a fact if that's true, but I would guess it is. You know, I was out there, this was an Antifa guy that I was drawing. If a fight scene isn't actually moving the story forward, it's a waste of space. That's exactly correct, Mike. I totally agree with that. Yeah, I found that out. I mean, the costs for producing a book, there's so many hidden costs. And you think you've got it all figured out. Because I mean, I've been in this business for 30 years. I mean, I know how it works, but there's just things you don't think about. And when you're offering stretch goals and things like that, that are basically freebies to the customer, you know, all that is a printing cost. And then if you're using you're using new art. I mean, a lot of people will do like trading cards and stickers or whatever, and they'll use art they've already, you know, got laying around, so they don't have to do it again. I, for the most part, used new material on all my trading cards and most of my stickers. So I didn't make my life any easier, but I wanted all this stuff to be new and original, and stickers are super expensive. Trading cards are a better value, and I think they're probably a better option simply because they have a collectability aspect to them that stickers don't necessarily have, because most people are going to get a sticker and they're probably going to stick it on something. Trading card, you know, you're going to maybe put in a trading card sleeve, and you can put together a whole set of trading cards for your universe of characters and things like that. And then, you know, you got something pretty cool. That's what I think I'm going to do for stretch goals on the next campaign is do like a really, or start the beginnings of a real comprehensive card set, because I think that would be kind of fun. But then I'm probably creating more pain in the butt for myself, because then I got to do artwork for all of them. But I might sucker in a few friends to do some pieces for me. Like I got Mike S to do the Wraith of God sticker, which was really, he just did a tremendous piece for me. I was like, dude, I got to use that somehow. And so it ended up being a sticker. We've got it laying around here someplace. Yeah, I got this box of leftovers, overprints basically. So we got the Esther card. Oops, right? Stuff on the back, look, a little Empire Comics logo. How cool is that? So this is the Esther card that's a stretch goal that everybody gets. But there's a few extras of these, which, and of course I can sell on the convention circuit or whatever. I've got some leftover stickers. It's really bizarre because they all came out in different numbers, right? They hit the minimum. So I think I had ordered like 2,000 stickers or something, and of each one, but they were each a separate order. So who knows, you know, they turn the press off and, you know, 10 more go through or whatever. But anyway, there's the Wraith of God sticker that Mike Miller did for me. And now I did the color work on there, but Mike did the pencil and ink work. And I thought that was just really cool. A nice sense of motion to it. I had to expand out the cape because his cape was smaller and I needed it to go all the way to the edge. So, but that was the only thing I mucked around with it, and then I colored it. And then I got David Williams to do the nightclub sticker, the art for the nightclub sticker. These are all matte finish, so you don't have to, get that really horrible glare off of it. But yeah, so that's Mr. Midnight, Metal, and Sculpture. Those are the 3 people in that team right now, but that team will be expanding in the nightclub story that I'll be doing in this book as well. So then the other stuff I did myself, right? So I had to do the Empiris sticker. That's my art, new art I did for that. Of course, pencil inked and colored it. Empiris won't be showing up for a bit yet, but he's an important character down the line. So I thought I'd tease you guys with that. Of course, I got a few of the Ace of Spades playing cards. These are something that everybody gets. I sort of aged them. See, there's brown spots on there and stuff, so it can feel like an older card. And that was new art I did specifically for this, So anytime you do extra stuff like that, that's more work, right? And you don't really think about it because you think, oh, I can knock that out. But when you're trying to get a book done and you've got all these extras to do too, then it's like, that's why I ended up working for most of the 7 months I was working on this project. I was working 7 days a week because I had so much art to do that I hadn't really taken it into consideration. But I will on the next campaign and try and be a little bit more organized. But, it's the first time and you learn stuff. And what works and what doesn't work and what's a good approach and what, might be a better approach next time. I also added a bunch of perks late. That I won't do that next time. I will make sure they're all on there, with the exception if I end up doing a late Kit Carter edition cover. On this tree that I'm working on, I'm using an F-lead Derwent Graphic HB pencil. These are fairly expensive, but it's kind of a medium lead. It's not too hard, it's not too soft, it's right in the middle. And for bigger areas like that I want to darken in, normally I probably wouldn't even darken those in for this because I'm going to ink this. But, for the sake of you guys seeing what I'm doing, so I got this combination of pine trees and deciduous trees in this forest. Some bushes peeking out here and there. Got some rocks right there. So I'll definitely have Gabe color the Wraith of God, the new Wraith of God story in the next project, but I don't know if I'm going to have him color everything or not. I may have to just, not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just trying to get maybe a different feel to the different stories, but we'll see how that all kind of plays out. I like to try and create kind of a wood texture. Like I said, it's kind of a waste to do this with a pencil because I'm going to go right back in with a brush and have to recreate this sort of texture. But at least gives me an idea of where my solid blacks are, where my breaks in the black are going to be. Like to get some bumps and stuff in this wood so it's not just regular flat wood grain texture, but I guess a little Frazetta-isms in the character of the tree. Some moss and stuff on it. Of course, this is a night scene, so that's why there's the heavy shadows on the trees. Now, what I'm going to do is check the chat first. Well, Vic, thank you. That's very nice. That's the nicest thing you ever said to me. I wish I could trade in all the CG guys just for Aaron. All these characters look awesome. That dude reminded me of the Spectre. He's got a little bit of Spectre in him, a little bit of Doctor Strange. He's a little bit of, he's got some cosmic elements to him. I'm actually kind of excited to do that character, but it's one of those things where you just sort of, things have to be done in order for everything to work the way I want it to. So we're probably, it's kind of ridiculous to start talking about 3 projects down the road, but after this, my next project will feature, we'll probably still continue to do Wraith of God, but we'll probably jump in with the Empirus story to get that rolling. But it's interesting because what I'm going to do with the end of this story is going to pique people's interests as well. So it's like I kind of have to carry through with some stuff before I can introduce new stuff. I got to make sure that there's at least a level of, people can say, okay, we can skip a Garbage Man story this time because that was sort of, that he baited us with this other thing and kind of resolved it. So, but I do have a lot of ideas and we always think all of our ideas are great, right? But sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But I think I've been doing this long enough, and I think I have good enough taste as a fan that I can kind of understand that when I come up with something that kind of blows, that I can tell myself, yeah, we're not doing this. And then when you create something that you go, you know what? As a fan, you look at it and go, this really works. I think this is cool. You have to kind of trust your instincts on that. But you also, like I talked about earlier, you have to be willing to edit yourself and be able to, realistically look at what you're doing and say, yeah, that's not a great idea, Aaron. You need to move on. But I have definite plans, and hopefully I'll be able to see them all to fruition. I had to mess around with these fingers a little bit because I didn't like the way that, I'm sorry. I had to mess around with these fingers a little bit because I didn't like the way that tree line was running into that hand. So I wanted to push this middle finger out farther so it wasn't lined up perfectly with that tree line. You can see he's a little bit short in the midsection, but I wanted to do that. He's kind of hunched over and scrunched. I mean, he's a dead guy, right? So I didn't want him. I want him to felt kind of like curled up and gnarly a little bit. So that's why, you see him with a bigger head and his shoulders aren't quite so broad, and his torso isn't really as long as it probably normally would be. Those are kind of things, and you want the legs to be longer, especially if you're going to do something like knock-kneed and weird, like I've done here. You want those legs kind of to be longer. And his arms are longer too, right? So it is kind of weird proportionally, but it's not a mistake in the sense that I did it on accident. It may be a mistake if you don't like it, but it was done on purpose to get a certain look out of the character. Is that Hunter or Joe? JG, that's such an awesome zombie. I love the details on his face and the veiny undead hands. Thank you, sir. Yep, those are meth teeth, all right. It's kind of the remnants of one of those old, 1800 kind of, not really a bow tie, but they have the little tie at the straps hung down. I was coming across some of those in the when I was doing my research for Wraith of God. So this dude's old. I mean, he's old. He's not a. He said middle finger. Yes, he's not in great shape, and neither are his clothes. No, that's actually a sci-fi movie from the 50s, The Zombies from Uranus. You guys are going to make me do it, aren't you? All right. There it is. I usually don't play by the same rules on these last second live streams as I do for the Sunday show. Mainly because I'm sitting here drawing and it's hard to watch the chat and keep an eye on what you guys are saying. So I did say that I was going to work the title into the art. And I am going to do that. Let's pull back and see what my plans are. Actually, I don't know if you can see inside the tree there, there's NIGHT sort of worked in the tree. So it's Night of the Living Jed. So he's on this hill. So it's going to be this combination of rocks and leaves and barren soil that are going to make up this lettering. So let's go ahead and work on the night here. Those of you who got the Garbage Man trade will notice that the did something similar on that. Work the title into the tree bark. In fact, I think I have one sitting here. I can pull out real quick as an example just what I'm talking about. There it is. Now, there you go. So you see how Garbage Man has worked into the bark of the tree. Now, what we had to do when we decided to use this as the logo on the book, because I was actually thinking of taking out the Garbage Man here so I could lay in a Garbage Man logo across it. But then the more we looked at it, we thought, well, why don't we just use that? So what I had to do is I had to really lighten this, whereas in the original art, I think, let me take a look. I think it's in here. Yeah, this is how it looked on the original. And I just thought, well, that Garbage Man doesn't, for the title of a book, it doesn't really stand out enough, right? And from a distance, especially, it might get lost a little bit. So we went in and I went in and punched this up using basically the same color the moon is. Dave McKeag actually did the coloring on this originally, but I had to go in, like I said, and I lightened up the Garbage Man part just for the use of the cover. And one of the things I did in this book, again, if you haven't got the book, what I did with the first 6 segments is I had a title page for each segment, right? This was like for issue number 1. This wasn't the cover because it was an anthology book. But when you opened the book to the Garbage Man story, this was the first page, right? So then it was basically, I was only doing a 9-page story. This, of course, was then for the second part. I did the Garbage Man, and this was Batman originally, but now it's Mr. Midnight. And then this one, so you can see I worked Garbage Man in, and I had the werewolf character up there. And then here's Garbage Man, which I kind of like this one because this is like oozing from his arm, right? His arm's been cut off. And it's oozing out Garbage Man here. That was one of the ones I was most pleased with. This one, there's nothing really all that clever about this. And then that was the last one, kind of this Man-Thing story I was talking about. And so you got Garbage Man and Moss hanging. And these were all the first page to every story. And I was under the impression that everybody in the anthology was doing this, right? So that there would be an interior cover for each story to separate the stories. Well, when I found out when this went to press, I'm the only one who did it. So I thought, well, if no one's going to, it looked really kind of stupid. I was the only one doing it. So there's no consistency throughout the book. So on the second miniseries, when I there was 6 issues and 10 pages in each one, I was like, well, I'm not going to waste a story page doing, a faux cover for the inside of the book. And so I only did for the first 6, and then the last 6, they were 10-page stories without the inside cover. And this, of course, is the artwork I did originally. Danny Mickey inked this. This was going to be the, what was I going to use this for? A cover or a limited edition print? I can't even remember. And then I colored it. So it's kind of a dog that it's all the way at the back of the book like that, but at least it's in there. What I wanted to do on this trade paperback was I wanted to have chapter headings for each story, because that's really what they are. They're not individual issues. They're more like chapters in a longer story. So that'd have been cool if this had been chapter 1, right? And then you get through this story and you go through, and then there's, chapter 2, and then you turn to this page, right? And like I said, I worked the title in this one, Toxic Revenger, into the artwork on every one of these stories. But Dark Horse didn't have enough pages to do it. It would have cost too much money because we were over the page count. So we didn't get to separate the chapters. They just kind of run into each other. So it's not the ideal format for that book, but it's still very readable. I'm not, it's just not exactly what I wanted. I will answer no question before it's time, Gemini. You will have to read your Wraith of God graphic novel to get any questions answered concerning any connection there may or may not be between the Wraith of God and the modern characters. Thank you, old man. Marvel hates me. Marvel and DC hate me, and Image hates me too. I found out, so I won't be working for them anytime in the near future, probably ever again. Let's see here. Aaron, now that Quesada stepped down at Marvel, does this possibly open doors for you? No. Because it's everybody at every level hates us now. And they're also Marvel, and I don't know at DC, although I've heard that they're all cutting page rates, and Marvel especially, is my understanding. And so it's like, you might as well do your own book because you're probably going to make at least as much money as you would working for Marvel. And I've got to say, you know, I haven't drawn every character, but I've drawn darn close to every character in one form or another. And now that I'm actually kind of working on my own stuff, there's a certain pleasure in that is incredibly satisfying. And it's kind of where I was such a part of the Marvel and DC machine for so long, you know, and getting to work on characters that were some of my favorites when I was a kid, and even as a young adult growing up, still reading comics and stuff. But after doing that for, 30 years, you're kind of like, what have I got to do that I haven't done already? I mean, yeah, there's always new stories with the characters, but you have to understand and realize that if guys like Jack Kirby or John Byrne or others, eventually got squeezed out of the industry, how is that not going to happen to me, right? And it essentially did happen to me, but before, all the political nonsense, I became blacklisted because of the political nonsense. But before that, before I did Wraith of God, I was I'd run my course in the mainstream comics industry, unless I just wanted to be, a guy that they called when they needed a fill-in issue or something. Because everybody that I'd worked with and knew well and respected me were all got canned at DC. And I hadn't really spent a lot of time in those 12 years I was at DC creating new relationships or maintaining relationships with Marvel. They were kind of pissed at me, I think, for leaving to go to DC in the first place. So, and I don't know that, that ever changed. But you start to realize that, at some point they're just going to say, your phone's going to stop ringing, whether that's at my age or 5 years from now or whenever it would have been. And then what do you do, right? So it seemed like, considering what was going on in the industry, what was going on at the companies, that this was the best time to try this. And now that I'm kind of doing it, there's such a great feeling of satisfaction of, being able to work on stuff that you've created, and you have control over. That, I look at people drawing, Marvel characters or DC characters, and in some ways I kind of feel sorry for them, because I'm like, these people are making their living off another company's products. And those products could be pulled out from underneath them at any time without warning. And I'm, at least initially, hopefully it will continue, we'll see. But I've got the opportunity to do my own thing. And it's working out so far. So I have no desire to go back. I feel so disconnected from that world right now that it's just bizarre. I mean, I never thought, we've all got that feeling of pining away. I'd love to be the Spider-Man artist, or I'd love to be this, or I'd love to be that. But like I said, after having done it for as long as I have, and even though I was never the regular artist on Spider-Man or the regular artist on Batman or whatever, I did get to draw those characters. And I've always been someone who had a lot of ideas and wanted to do their own thing. I just got, caught up in mainstream comics and the regular work and, being able to generate a regular paycheck without a ton of risk, that, this stuff just kind of fell by the wayside. And so kind of being forced into a situation where I have to do it. But I mean, I also want to do it, but you're not going to get yourself in that situation a lot of times unless you're forced into it, which I sort of was. And it's worked out, like I said, so far, but it's such a great feeling, and I don't know that I could get that feeling again by going back and working at Marvel or DC. And certainly not with the prevailing attitudes that are there now. Certainly, I don't like a lot of the creative decisions, or 90% of the creative decisions that are being made. So I don't know that I'd be comfortable working. It's not like it was, in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whenever you grew up reading, even the 2000s, reading this stuff. I mean, they're just, it's so different now. Comics are just a different thing than what I got into them for in the first place. So it's like, if I can't, if working in mainstream doesn't fulfill that sort of creative need, that's kind of like, then you really are just doing it for a paycheck. And doing this stuff now sort of fulfills that creative need I have. That's my psychotherapy for tonight. Oh, look. Porn bots. Excellent. Yeah, is anybody with a wrench here? Somebody's got a wrench that's here, don't they? I have wrenched several people. Okay, well, let's see. I've got to go. I got to open up a new window. Bear with me a second here, because I can't do it through StreamYard. I have to do it through YouTube. Let's see. Yeah, Mike is the only one that had one. Okay, green laser, you're always asking me for a wrench. I'm going to give you one. So don't let me down. All right, so I just wrenched Jiminy Cricket and Green Laser. So you guys must destroy the porn bots. I'm assuming if that didn't work, let me know, but it should have. Okay, did anybody get wrenches? Let's see here. Give there you go. All right, there you go. Jiminy Cricket, Green Laser, and Sequential Treasures. I just gave you guys wrenches. So use them wisely. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. The funny thing is, I've been getting back to, the 30-year career thing. Everybody's like, oh, now you can take more time, and do it the way you want to do it. And it's so funny because you develop over time through repetition, you develop an approach. And I'm not talking stylistically, I'm talking about work. And I don't know that I could take more time than I do. I just work at a certain speed. Now, granted, you can put more detail in a thing, and that's going to, that's going to take you more time. But you also have to be careful about how much detail you put in, because this is a comic book. It's not a portfolio or a limited edition print. So everything's getting reduced down. It's getting colored over the top of it. You're going to lose, some of the detail. So you got to kind of be careful that you don't go too crazy, because it's not going to reproduce the way you want it to anyway. But I always tell myself, oh yeah, I'm going to really slow down. I'm going to, put a lot of detail. I mean, there's a ton of detail in this, but it's really not taking me that long to do, because this is just how I work. A lot of people ask me, it's like, geez, Aaron, how are you so fast? And it's like, well, ever since when I was 12 years old and How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way came out. And it was, I want to say that's where I heard it, but I haven't read that book in so long. Maybe I'm thinking of something else, but I think there's something in there about, how fast you should be expected to draw or something like that. And maybe it was in something else I read, I don't know. But that stuck with me at a very early age, page a day, page a day, page a day. And so I started developing a working style, a working habit. Again, not an art style, but a working style that allowed me to do things regardless of how complex they might be, to get them done in a certain amount of time. And to be honest with you, a lot of people, a lot of artists, their work ethic isn't that great. Okay. So they spend a lot of time screwing around instead of actually working. And that is why, you'll see some artists, they'll say, oh, that guy can't do a monthly book. Well, the reality is they're probably just as fast as I am, but they probably don't spend as many hours at the drawing table as I do. Right. And I'm not saying everybody, I'm not trying to suggest that there's people that are lazy, but it's when you work at home, especially if you have kids, you can get easily distracted and not get anything done. And I think that's the bigger offense that keeps some artists from being more productive than other ones, is not so much how quickly they work, but how much they work. Yeah, I gotta be careful here. I used to be a really crappy letterer. I'm not saying I'm a great letterer now, but I am at least, passable. Where I used to just suck. And let me give you some examples. The stuff that I'm proud of. Okay, so this Reborn Identity, the title of the first story here. Okay, where I made the lettering out of the ooze on the ground. So that was me. Well, that turned out pretty well. That Crash, I did that. This But a Thump, that's me. Not great, but it's okay. I'm kind of hit and miss. Some of the that I did that explode. I think that turned out pretty well. The ballroom, that was by hand. Of course, this is by hand, but it's all ruler. Toxic Revenger. Then I just went in and kind of made it cracks and stuff, like it was made of stone or cement. You can see that there. This Blam 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 Blam, those aren't great. Bash, that's actually pretty good. I like that. And the crash, I kind of worked it in the background so you don't really kind of hide some of the deficiencies in the lettering. I don't mean to show you the whole story if you haven't read it yet, but Monster Hunt, I worked it into the title. Again, that's pretty much just ruling. I'll just show you a couple more and then let's see. I'll pull it away so give you guys spoilers. Let's read the whole thing. It'll be fun. I like this right there. That turned out pretty well, that crack. That across the bottom there was pretty good. That clank actually is pretty good. There's one more in here. Where is it? If I can find it. Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's Garbage Man fighting some monsters in the sewer. And that smash down there is he like smashes this dragon thing down. That basically. So I was pretty pleased with that. I thought that was a fairly creative way to do that. Oh, and this is like probably my favorite right there. Monster Smash. There's a real nice kind of Wrightson-esque splash page right there of the Garbage Man battling this werewolf monster. This is probably some of the best work, if not the best work I've done in comics, is right here in this book. Because when I was working on it, there was no deadline on it because it was something I was doing, but they were kind of waiting for me to get it done before, which is really, really rare. So I had zero pressure on that book, and I was able to kind of go at my own pace as I was working on it on the side. So, and not having any pressure while you're working on something is a great thing. Even if you don't spend any more time on it than you would a normal page, but the fact that you don't have that sort of pressure hanging over you, you can do better work, I think. I may have to shore up some of this a little bit more. Okay, so we got night in the tree, and we're gonna. This I'm probably gonna have to do more in the inking stage. Get all that bark texture in there. So if I go down here, now you probably can't see that, but there's a blue line right here. This is your live art area. All right, and then your trim line is right here. Sorry. So this is your live art area. So like if you have any like dialogue or anything you want it in this area, inside this area, this here is where they're going to try and trim the book, right? Where they'll cut the paper. Okay. But they want you to bleed the art all the way out to here because this is an incorrect science. So it could slip a 16th this way or this way. But in case it shifts a 16th or, it probably wouldn't go as far as an 8th, but it might go out a 16th or 32nd, that they don't have a white line right there because they missed the trim by a little bit. So there's still art there. Now, if you're only doing your artwork inside this area, which is if you're doing normal panel art, this is all going to be white over here anyway. So if the trim is off a little bit, it doesn't matter because it's all white. It's not going to make any difference. But if you're doing full bleed, that's why they want you to bleed it all the way out to the side because it gets trimmed right there. And they need, some variation in art just in case that line slips a little bit. And you want to keep your lettering inside this safe zone right here, even though you can bleed it a little bit outside, but then you get close to that trim line, you could be getting yourself in trouble. So try and keep that inside. Okay, so this is actually going to be part of the hill that's coming down here. So I want this lettering to sort of reflect the perspective of this hill that he's walking down. Actually, you know what might, I wonder, I probably should put the right in here too. I was going to put it in here. But I'm afraid it's going to, well, maybe not. Well, what I'll do is I'll move this over so it's closer to his leg. And there won't be that big of a gap. Now I'm going to dress this up quite a bit, but I'm just trying to get it blocked in here. And then we can go here like this. All right. And even though some of it's covered up, we'll be able to see enough of the lettering that we'll know what that letter is. Right, that's clearly an E. So you're going to have, yeah, maybe do it a little bit like this. So night of the, and then we're going to go back over here. Let's see if I can get this readable. I think we can. One of the things I try to do a lot when I'm doing lettering is keep it uneven so that there's no expectation that, oh, that's not straight. But so if you're doing, you know, kind of rough lettering, you know, and you can make it look cool and it doesn't, there's no expectation that it's all lined up perfectly, right? Because that's, so in other words, this is a great way to hide your flaws. So how are we going to do this? This N is going to get obscured, but if I drag it down here and then go to here, so this G, so that we can see the G, right? So night of the living. Now I may just bleed this jet all the way off the page. Like this. Because we'll certainly get enough of it that we'll know what the letter is. Kind of doing this down and dirty just so you guys can see my approach, but this may not be what the finished lettering looks like. So we could drop this all the way down like that. And then this D might be a little problematic. Probably going to have to make it smaller. Yeah, because I'm going to want this D up here probably. So this is what we call doing it wrong in erasing. But I got to figure out It's the only way I can figure out. I mean, I could do it on an overlay, like a piece of tracing paper, which probably would be a smarter thing to do. So I can try to get this thing figured out exactly as I want it. So we did something like that. And then I could take maybe move this up a little bit. And we can move the V up. Like that. Screw it. We'll worry about it later. It's too boring to sit here and work on that right now. Green laser, I can wrench the... Oh, he's right. I misspelled it. Maybe it'd fit better if I spelled it right. Oh, yeah, duh. No wonder it didn't fit. Okay, so I do that. Thank you, Lewis. So I could do it like that. I could scooch this over a little bit, and then I can move Jet over. Yeah, you know, I think I can do that. So I might even still, because I got this kind of warp going this way, I might be able to move that L up here. Go with the I. Live. You don't want to lose the V. Let's see here. We go living, and then we can do Jet down here. Save the D. There we go. Something of that nature. This needs to be way more in perspective. So probably what I'm going to do is I'll probably put, let's see, here's probably the top of the hill right here. So I may put a vanishing point for that about right there, and then come down and draw guidelines out of that spot and keep the letters in line with that. But at least I kind of have an idea of what I want to do there. So we'll just finish up these trees in the background and call it good. Let me get my finer pencil. See, Dan Lawless, he didn't pick up Garbage Man yet. Got to fix that. Well, I just ruined the whole story for you practically by showing you. Hey, Benjamin Lee, thanks for dropping in, man. Going back to sleep. Good night. Aaron, good night. Benjamin, I'm sure you got to work tomorrow. I appreciate it. This is turning into the Jack Show. Hardly. Oh, old man, I'm glad I was able to fool you into buying a copy of Garbage Man. Thank you very much. In all honesty, appreciate it very much. Will there be an Ellie Mae zombie? Yeah, actually there will be. May not be named Ellie Mae. But yeah, there's more than one old geezer coming out of the grave in this story. Let me just put it that way. I'll put some bushes in here. See, if I was smart, I'd just put silhouette trees right behind him and save myself all the work, and it probably would help him stand out better too. But why would I do that? I do kind of want to work in some little more deciduous trees up here. Also, the interesting thing when I do the campaign with these 3 stories in it, it's like I'll be able to like preview a couple pages from each story, and so you'll get like 6 preview pages, but you really won't get anything that ruins any of the stories. You just kind of get the intros to each one. I don't think I ruined the Wraith of God story, but I gave you 5 pages to the very opening sequence, and probably would just go ahead and blacken this in back here, because there's really no reason not to. Right, so if I've got this tree here, all right, we can work in. So I was trying to find that right balance of, some silhouette with some detail. It's really easy, like I said, to get carried away with detail that really is not, it looks cool just from sort of oh, look at all those lines, but it doesn't necessarily serve storytelling the best all the time. Because we want this guy not to get lost in all of this, right? So thinking, oops, I don't want to do that. I'm thinking I'm going to use just this back here is just going to be black silhouettes. Some of these pine tree branches out here. And it goes all the way down like this. I'll just have all of this be black in here. Although the shading here needs to be line work then, because I don't want it to get lost in the black. And then I'll have this kind of go up like that, and I'll have this space here. Throw in a few more tree branches like that. Another one here. Those branches will get lost behind that tree. I might leave this area open right here, maybe for some really dark blue. So this can all be silhouetted in like this. And of course, we're going to want this silhouetted. So these two are going to kind of run together, but with this opening down here, this will keep them separated enough so that our eye will tell us there's 2 different trees that are kind of crossing in the background. And go bring in another one here. Again, I'm doing the color. I wouldn't be filling in these blacks if it wasn't for your benefit. Normally I just put X's on them. And then the inker, of course, in that case, the inker will be me. But in a monthly situation where you're working with an inker, they would know to fill that in. Stuff that's X'd would be fill in black. Okay, so let's see. Something like that. This is what I'll probably do here is come out of that solid black and sort of crosshatch this so it breaks open into this kind of side of the mountain or hill. It's not a mountain, it's a hill that he's walking down. Like that. And so there'll be a crosshatch here like that. So you can see that's a real loose indicator. I'll be doing that with a pen, so I don't need it to be all that tight. And then so you got this black here, and if you don't want these huge gaps there, you'd say, well, there'd be something there. You could go in. You don't want to put any detail probably in here, but just some indication of some leaves, and then that can put some color in there that kind of. So this is going on sort of behind the pine trees there. It just depends on how dense you want to make this forest. And he is out in the middle of nowhere, so I do sort of want to make it dense. And there we go. Okay, so let's see what we've accomplished, if anything, on this fine evening. Pull this back a little bit so we can see everything. Okay, so we have pretty much indicated what we've got going on here in the woods. Still got quite a bit of work to do on that lettering, and I probably will do a tracing paper overlay to kind of figure out what I want the lettering to look like. And then once I get it, I will then take that tracing paper, put it on the underside of this, put it on a light table and trace it on there, and then just do all the leaves and twigs and gnarly stuff on the ground around them. And then you'll have your title worked into the actual art and the story. And so we got a big splash page of a zombie coming out of the woods. The garbage man here, who again should probably be mostly silhouette, and maybe I will, blacken in some of this around here and give him just a rim light, or I could just have the colors, like I said, going and color him darker so that he kind of fades into the background. But that's there you go. That's your opening splash to the garbage man story. So you should be intrigued by it, I hope. And of course, you'll see this finished on the campaign page. But you were here for the initial penciling work to get this sucker done. So there we have it. How about that? I got some work done, got a live stream, got some good conversation. Of course, Jeff coming in with the lame jokes late at night. Is that a picture of a portrait of a person on Uranus? You see that, Jeff, that joke was made about an hour ago and you missed it. Old man, that could easily be on a cover. It's top-notch work. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Dan's like, gosh, would I love to color that? Well, maybe I'll hire you, Dan. But could you stand just to color something? Or, Porn bots haven't returned because they fear the wrench brigade. You know, I could put a needle sticking out of his shoulder and have him reaching for the syringe to, you know. Jiminy says, great work. Thank you, Jiminy. I appreciate it. Thank you, Frankie. The trees look detailed. They are detailed, but not as crazy as they could be. Jimmy says, that looks great. Well, thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here as well. I saw you had some comments earlier. I was going to get to them and then I didn't. So I want you to know that I did see you. Vic says, whoa, I think you're getting Wraith of God mixed with Garbage Man. I'm going to find the end of the Wraith of God in Garbage Man, Alzheimer's. Vic, I can always understand about 2/3 of what you're saying, but I appreciate the effort. And you should appreciate my effort trying to decipher your messages. Oh, yeah. It's drawn so well, it nearly paints itself. Well, we'll talk, Dan, because I do want to get different looks on some of these stories rather than just have one colorist do the whole thing. So if that'd be something you're interested in, we can certainly have a conversation about that. So Jimmy, I wasn't getting Jimmy's full attention. He was watching West Wing with his mom, so that's okay. As long as you're watching it with your mom. I watch TV with my mom too. Look at that, Vix. Yes, sir. Loyal backer for life. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Darth Josh is in the house. Hail, Phil. Is Phil here? Oh, there he is. No, that's Dan. There's Phil. He's plugging Dan. He's plugging Dan on my show. I'm trying to think. I'd have to go back and look at it. I think he did a good job. Look at that. Not only will Dan color it, he'll color it live, baby. You're intriguing me, Dan, because I like your coloring a lot. I didn't know you'd be up for something like that. All right, we'll talk. Julie Pascal is here. Have you been here, Julie? If you haven't, I missed you. I apologize. Here come the porn guys. Okay, Zaid's finally getting around to saying actually hi to me. Since it's my stream, you'd think he would have led with that, but that's all right. I forgive you. All right. Well, let me switch back to this thing so we can all see my lovely face. Talking about something that didn't age well. Jeez. All right. Anyway, hey guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join me this evening. I know it's late, but it's always fun to draw, right? No matter what time it is. And let me hold this up right here so you can kind of see it. Maybe you can see it flat. I don't know if it makes any difference or not. It's about the same. Anyway, that'll be fun. That's silly. One page down. Well, one page penciled. They still got to ink it, but anyway, how about that? We're working on the next project already. Exciting. Anyway, so thank you guys again for joining me. And Julie just got here, and now we're leaving. Sorry, Julie. Zombie was less frightening than what, your joke or the porn bots? We're all doing as well as we can be under the circumstances, of course. But yes, everything is progressing. I mean, how do you like put a good spin on cancer? You can't really, but she did get a really good prognosis in terms of, the survival rate is, that's not even an issue that, that this could be fatal or anything. It's just a matter of what procedure to take to get it taken care of. And there's a lot of decisions there that need to be made. But we thank you all. For those of you who've been thinking about us, those of you who've been praying for Shelley, we appreciate it greatly. And your support has meant the world to her and to me as well. So I appreciate that, you guys. Randy Hall, can't wait to heard Jed's story. I think he means read. That's right. You started drawing more and quit lifting. What did you expect? Man, that is some truth in that, man. Well, it's one thing. It's easy to lift weights when you're not married and you're just dating, or maybe you're in between dating, and so you come home from work, and what do you got to do? You're going to go to the gym. Now, that is a lot more problematic. And I used to think when I was younger, I'm never going to get tired of lifting. I'm going to lift till I die. Well, that may not be true. And of course, that shoulder surgery, my shoulder's still not 100%. It's ridiculous. It was over a year ago, and it still bothers me a little bit. So I'm doing push-ups and stuff to try and get back into it. But I don't see myself bench pressing 300 again anytime soon. So I will do that. Thank you so much, Vic. They're lifting me up. You're a handsome Bubba, those dark hypnotizing eyes. Okay. That's absolutely true. So we're actually feel pretty good at long term. It's just the short term decisions, like I said, that are a pain. Oh yeah, let me plug Phil. I don't have a link for it. I have a link for Wraith of God in the description of this video. But Zaid Comics, they're putting out the CGC Vacation swimsuit spectacular. It's going to harken back to the old like Marvel swimsuit issues and things like that, which I would also take credit for creating, because I pitched to Tom DeFalco this idea. And this one I was still trying to break in, right? I had some pinup stuff like of She-Hulk and stuff. And I was pitching him this idea to do a pinup calendar. And then shortly after their Marvel came out with the pinup magazine. So I'm not saying it was my idea. I'm just saying it was my idea. And like I said before, like George Costanza, if I believe it's the truth, then it's not a lie. So anyway, check out the CG Vacation book on Indiegogo. And there's a lot of people contributing, myself included. I could probably show you that, couldn't I? Here's the pencil to it anyway. Phil wanted a Western themed thing. I was really difficult because I can't really do a swimsuit because I didn't really have them back then. But so I got this kind of, this is not Esther, because Esther would not be this type of girl. This is probably a girl from the saloon getting ready to take a bath. And I might throw in the Wraith's shadow coming up against the old bathtub there and on the ground. So that's my piece for the CG Vacation pinup book. So there you go. Anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate it. So what do we got? Wow, yes, back it, guys. We just got 200 backers. Excellent. And as they're getting close to 200 backers, I am so close to 2,500 backers. So if you haven't backed Wraith of God and you're thinking, I like what this guy's laying down, maybe I'll check it out. You can follow the link in the description to go to that campaign and check it out as well. And also, like I said, later, I have some shirts, some Wraith of God shirts extras. If you want one, you didn't get to order one for whatever reason before I close the campaign, and you wouldn't mind getting one of these, I still have larges, extra larges, and 2Xs available. So you can email me that at aaron@aaronlopresti.com, or message me if we're Facebook or Twitter friends or something, and we can work something out there. I've got a few of those left. I still got shot glasses and beanies as well, and those are available on the campaign. Those ship immediately when ordered, by the way. So what else can I pitch? Nothing. Okay, I'm done. So I'm going to go to bed and take my car in to get the AC fixed tomorrow. Joy. Anyway, thank you again. Thank you, guys. Oh, look at this. Randy always keeps tabs on me. He's 3 backers away from 2,500. Wow. So we've gained a couple today. That's awesome. Thank you, everybody, so much for supporting our campaign, supporting our live streams. And when I say us, I mean all of us that do it in CG, and even guys that aren't CG that do it, that are friends, and try to do this and make it work. So as the sex bots return, that's my cue to step out. So again, thank you. What is today? Thursday? Probably see you again before Sunday, but if I don't, check us out Sunday, Shelly night, 5 o'clock. We'll have more fun and hijinks for sure. All right. Good night, everybody. And thank you again for joining me.